First, they fired the journalists. But I stayed silent because I thought the media was biased anyway. Then they banned protests. But I didn't care. I never went to protests anyway. Then they rewrote the Constitution. But I stayed silent because I thought it didn't affect me. Then they jailed the opposition. But I stayed silent because I never liked those politicians anyway. And when they came for me, there was no one left to speak up. We like to think we'd recognize the moment democracy begins to fall. But the truth is, most people don't. The book, How Democracies Die, by Daniel Ziblatt and Stephen Levitsky, is the book you read if you want to understand how democracies collapse and what it takes to stop it. These 5 takeaways from the book reveal how democracies die and how to see it coming before it's too late. The electoral road to breakdown is dangerously deceptive. With a classic coup d'etat, as in Pinochet's Chile, the death of a democracy is immediate and evident to all. The presidential palace burns. The president is killed, imprisoned, or shipped off into exile. The constitution is suspended or scrapped. On the electoral road, none of these things happen. There are no tanks in the streets. Constitutions and other nominally democratic institutions remain in place. People still vote. Elected autocrats maintain a veneer of democracy while eviscerating its substance. Institutions alone can't save democracy. Social norms and shared beliefs matter just as much. Democracies work best and survive longer where constitutions are reinforced by unwritten democratic norms. 2 basic norms have preserved America's checks and balances in ways we have come to take for granted. Mutual toleration, or the understanding that competing parties accept one another as legitimate rivals. Most people believe democracy is about rules. Free elections, a constitution, separation of powers. But the truth is, rules aren't enough. Democracies also rely on invisible norms and shared beliefs just as much. One of the most essential of these is mutual toleration. The idea that no matter how much we disagree, we see the other side as a legitimate part of the system, not as traitors, enemies, or threats to the nation. When mutual toleration disappears, politics turns into a zero-sum game. Rivals stop being the opposition and become the enemy. And in that environment, violence, repression, and democratic backsliding become far more likely, even if all the formal rules are still technically in place. In short, when we stop believing in democracy as a shared space, the system begins to rot from the inside. Extreme polarization erodes the norms that hold democracy together. Polarization can destroy democratic norms. When socio-economic, racial, or religious differences give rise to extreme partisanship, in which societies sort themselves into political camps, whose worldviews are not just different but mutually exclusive, toleration becomes harder to sustain. When polarization is fueled by deep racial, religious, economic, or cultural divides, it becomes something much more dangerous. It turns political disagreement into a battle of identities. The authors highlight a striking shift. In 1960, almost no one cared if their child married someone from another political party. Just 4% of Democrats and 5% of Republicans said they'd be unhappy. By 2010, nearly half of Republicans and a third of Democrats said they'd be upset by an inter-party marriage. That tells us something crucial. Politics has become personal, tribal. It's not just about policies anymore. It's about who you are and who you're against. And when politics becomes identity, dialogue becomes impossible. Populists often become authoritarians. Populists are anti-establishment politicians. Figures who, claiming to represent the voice of the people, wage war on what they depict as a corrupt and conspiratorial elite. Populists tend to deny the legitimacy of established parties, attacking them as undemocratic and even unpatriotic. They tell voters that the existing system is not really a democracy but instead has been hijacked, corrupted, or rigged by the elite. And they promise to bury that elite and return power to the people. This discourse should be taken seriously. When populists win elections, they often assault democratic institutions. Populists claim to speak for the people. And when they come to power, they use that claim to tear down democracy. Political parties are democracy's gatekeepers. And when they fail, the system is at risk. Potential demagogues exist in all democracies, and occasionally, one or more of them strike a public chord. But in some democracies, political leaders heed the warning signs and take steps to ensure that authoritarians remain on the fringes, far from the centers of power. When faced with the rise of extremists or demagogues, they make a concerted effort to isolate and defeat them. Although mass responses to extremist appeals matter, what matters more is whether political elites, and especially parties, serve as filters. Put simply, political parties are democracy's gatekeepers. Parties must keep extremists off the ballot, even if they're popular. The short-term political advantage they bring may be too dangerous for democracy in the long run. If you believe democracy is worth protecting, then this book is worth your time. It doesn't just explain how democracies die, it shows what it takes to save them. You'll find links to the book in the description below.